This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. It's commonly known that any artist's #1 enemy and most feared thing ever is a white piece of paper, that blank page staring at you. What are you going to draw? Where are you going to get inspiration? But today I wanted to ask the question, what if your page wasn't covered with the blank emptiness of white, but instead the texture of grass? Grass not your thing? Well, maybe it's water. Or maybe your page is covered in bricks. Today I'm going to be taking inspiration from these pieces of scrapbook paper that I found in my local craft store and basically taking inspiration from what is already on the page and drawing on top of them. And with that, let's get creative. Paper is actually supposed to be sort of like a parchment paper, but when I saw it, I couldn't help but think of a beach. So at first I have this really kind of zoomed out small detail of a beach with towels and umbrellas and some kids in the water and a shark approaching them. So that one might be really fun. And then on this one, we have someone who is washed ashore, obviously a lot more zoomed in than our first one. Again, not really inspired by either of these ideas, but we'll play around with it. Going into this set of illustrations, I definitely wanted to focus on maybe more simple, less complex illustration styles with a more bold or deep, strong concept or story or just a really bold message. So going into this illustration, I wanted to focus on some very simple yet, like I said, strong and effective shapes and colors and shadows. So I wanted to illustrate the beach scenario, and I thought it would be really fun to go for these really colorful and bright illustrations that actually had a very dark and morbid story to them. So I wanted to illustrate a beach from a bird's eye view, put some very colorful, bright, fun umbrellas, a beach towel, make sure the beach and the water was just very colorful and bright and vivid and very fun. Just focus on this illustration being a little bit more on the happy side as far as color goes, but then if you take a deeper look at it, things get a little dark. So I didn't go for the exact sketch that I showed you guys, but I went a little bit more simple. Maybe it was because of the material using the Posca pens, because I was illustrating on paper that really wasn't meant for water or watercolor or paints. I really had to focus on a more simple style, so I put as few layers as possible for the water, really making sure that I did get very effective shadows and colors and make sure that it was bright and colorful, really limiting my layering because I didn't want the paper to buckle and tear too much. So instead of putting a shark shadow or people into the inner tube in the water, I just went for a very simple, there's an inner tube in the water, there's a blood trail, and you know what? You guys can fill in the blanks to this story. So I think it's really fun, very simple, and yet very effective. Overall, I definitely had a lot of fun with this illustration. Thought when I looked at these wood panelings was, of course, a fence. So I wanted to go with something really silly. So I have this really goofy dog digging its way under the fence. It's just so silly looking, and I think it's simple and fun. And he has a little worm friend. On the other hand, I thought it would be really cute to create a wood fence, but instead of a grassy field on the other side, we have an underwater scene. So there's a mermaid, there's fish, there's water plants. I think this one is a lot different. I think that one will probably be what I go with, but man, that dog is pretty silly. So we'll see. As tempted as I was to create our dog digging under a fence illustration, I ended up going with the fence underwater. I was really in love with both of these ideas. I think they were both very creative, very fun and bright and colorful, but in the end, an underwater scene with a fence to separate it was just a little bit more different than you would expect. At least I thought it was. So that is what I ended up going with. Now, when it comes to our worm sticking through the fence, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why is a worm so far above ground if I went for the dog? And even though I settled for our underwater scene, why is there a worm underwater? Let's not worry about it. Overall, I think I just had a lot of fun creating this really bright and colorful underwater scene with a fence. Something about blending Posca pens is very relaxing, and especially when it comes to the limited colors with the Posca pens. They're just so colorful, so bold, so bright, just a vibe that I'm not used to working with. I love my earthy colors, so when I work with watercolor, I definitely dull things down, but with Posca pens, it's just so much fun to work with these very bright colors. So when it comes to working with bright colors and my cutesy style, I think it's really fun to create scenes that are a little bit more morbid. So again, we're going with another bloody illustration. These illustrations are bright, they're colorful, they're simple, they're cute, so creating a spin on them with blood and gore and just a very mysterious, scary tone, I think that's just really fun, and I think that's what makes me so tempted to do that. So we have this very, like I said, bright and colorful scene with a fence, and then we've got a bone buried in the yard and some blood spread across the fence. Very mysterious, very scary, yet at the same time still bright, colorful, and happy. Why is someone's neighbor burying bones in their sandy backyard? These are the things I want you guys to think about. So here's our second illustration. The official texture of this paper is actually a leather couch, but when I saw it, I couldn't help but think of something dirt related. So in our first sketch, I have a little bunny with a garden. It's pretty simple, and I think if I do go with it, I'll probably just go with one little set for the garden. On the other hand, we have a bunch of anthills, just kind of playing around with maybe something flat, but at the same time trying to push, I don't know, perspective. Something to play around with. I'm not really sure which one I like more, so I don't know. Which one should I go with? In the end, I was having a lot of fun with our bright and colorful illustrations, so I wanted to go with an idea that was going to add a little bit more color and a little bit more overall brightness to our very brown and dark paper. As tempting as an ant illustration was, I definitely was leaning towards our garden because it was more bright, it was more colorful, and honestly, I just really liked the idea of adding a lot of green to this illustration because, like I said, it was just so brown and dark. This one was very simple. I just wanted to focus on there being a brown patch of dirt where there was going to be garden, and then I wanted to add some really fun, cute, white bunny characters to this illustration just to brighten it up a little bit. After blocking in our dirt, I guess, small farm or garden area, I just added a lot of texture with our green pens, and then also added our white bunny character characters with our white pen. I have a lot of fun adding these really simple yet I feel like cluttered details when it comes to my illustrations. So obviously I have a very simple color blocked or shape focused illustration style. So when it comes to adding quote unquote a lot of illustration detail to my art, I basically like to focus on textures or just adding a lot of one item. So the rows of carrots and turnips and the texture of the leafy greens coming off of these plants was enough for this illustration to become busy but also stay very simple, colorful, and just overall very fun and playful. So even though it's a very simple incorporation of our dirt texture, I think this one is probably the most successful. I just think it's very simple, very cute, very fun, because this is such a simple way to test my creativity to turn, let's say, a leather couch texture into something like a garden that's colorful and cute, and the texture of leather works very well for dirt. Who'd have thunk? I really wasn't sure what to go with when it came to this darker wood. Something I did think about is how it's a lot darker than the other textures. So at first I thought, well, maybe it's like a cabin and there are photos hanging up and then we have a ghost flying through it. I don't know, that one's kind of silly. Something else I went with, which is almost unrelated to the texture, using the boards, I was going to create a staircase up to some planets where a girl is reaching out to it, and then I put some very long flowing hair going down the stairs. So kind of a random idea, but it was really fun, so that's probably what I'm going to go with. Like I said, the idea of this illustration really is completely random when it comes to the texture of the paper. Wood paneling really doesn't scream a staircase into our solar system for a child to reach into, but I thought the idea was just so different and so unique to draw inspiration from a wood paneling texture of a piece of paper. So I definitely thought this one was the most interesting and different to go with. So that's what I ended up going with. This is one of those illustrations that is just very simple, yet at the same time very effective and somehow very appealing to me. I think when it comes to illustration styles, obviously the more simple the better. The bolder textures, the bolder colors and shapes, the more appealing it is to me. So when it comes to space, planets, stars, stuff like that, I just find it very appealing and fun and just also very relaxing to put in all of those stars. So once I had the base of our character drawn in, I went ahead and filled in the sky and shaped out our star case. Star case? I meant staircase, but you know what? Star case is also pretty cool. Okay, who's going to be the first person to build a staircase that is many thousands of miles long to our moon? Let's get on that. Going into this illustration, somehow I thought it was the most complex out of everything that I had sketched, but in the end, for whatever reason, I found it the most simple and relaxing to work on. Maybe it's because I create so many illustrations these days with space in them, so the stars and all of that was just really fun and familiar for me to work on. But in the end, even though this illustration really makes no sense, I think the randomness of it and the mystery of what is happening in this illustration is this little girl reaching for Saturn. Is she big? Is she small? What's going on in this illustration? Why is her hair so long? It was really fun to work on. It's very simple, it's very fun, and overall, I really like this piece. a field of grass, I can't help but think of someone laying in it and just soaking up the rays. So I also gave them a little dog friend, and I thought, what if we just focused on the dog friend? And this one is just so stupid and silly. I kind of love it the most, so we'll see which one I choose. At this point in the illustrations, I realized that the more simple, the more effective, so I definitely wanted to focus on our more simple idea, which was our dog. I just found that the shapes that I really pushed with our dog character were very stupid and made for a very fun and playful illustration of a dog, so that is what I wanted to focus on. Plus, at this point, I had made so many of our illustrations so far with a very morbid or bloody or gory twist, so I thought it would be really fun to take our very fun, simple, bright, colorful, playful dog character laying in the grass and turn it morbid, as I do. So as you saw in the original illustration, I had a dog rolling in the grass around some bones that had been buried, but originally I didn't have any sort of plan to turn those bones into a morbid, bloody scene. But like I said, so many of these illustrations were turning into that weird, gory twist, so I thought it would be really fun to turn this dog into the same thing. I went ahead as normal and created our very shapely dog rolling in the grass. I just thought it was really fun to push the illustration into a very simple, shape-oriented, and colorful style, and I absolutely love the way this dog turned out. He's just so much fun. I really like him. And then it came down to the details of our dog and his bones buried in the yard, so I thought it would be really fun to push the idea that this dog loves to dig holes in yards. So I have a few holes that are dug out, and then obviously we have some very bloody bones scattered about in the grass, and of course some blood splatters here and there just to really push that gory, morbid scene. So here we are, a dog that is innocent or guilty of murder. You be the decider. Decider? That's not the word I was looking for. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I haven't been the most inspired lately, so my ideas are kind of all over the place in this video, but for the start we have some cactus and a weird cactus person hanging around a busted brick wall, and then we also have some colorful worms with graffiti hanging around the wall as well. It is what it is. Originally, this was actually the first illustration that I sketched, but because it was so simple, I thought I would put it at the end. And even though I really wanted to go with our cactus idea, because as you guys know, I really like cactus or cacti, I did think that the worm idea was just a little bit more on the colorful and weird and fun side, so that is what I ended up going with. This was a really fun, I guess, warm down illustration for me. It was the last illustration that I created, and it was just a way for me to get kind of loose and silly and fun at the end of a session of illustrating. And even though it's not the most complex illustration, it is very fun and playful, and it has a very special place in my heart, so this is what I ended up with. So I started off by kind of deciding which bricks were going to become holes in this illustration, and then I went around and added our very colorful worms, because when in doubt, add colorful worms to your illustration? Is that a thing people say? No. Either way, colorful worms or not, I think for whatever reason this one turned out very fun and playful. It's a brick wall with holes in the wall and colorful worms. I went through this textured paper and added cracks throughout just to sort of add that dark black illustrative style throughout so that everything became a little bit more cohesive. That way our dark black illustrated style of creating gaps in the brick wall became a little bit more normal. So after our worms were illustrated and our holes were created, I thought it would be really fun to just splatter some of the pens throughout the bricks to create a painted look, and I immediately regretted not doing this first and adding the worms second, because it just kind of created a paint splatter all over my worms, which wasn't what I was going for, but it's still very fun and playful and colorful, so I'm not mad about it. And that's it. For my drawing on scrapbook paper video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you are somehow inspired by my ideas. But you know what's truly inspiring? Squarespace. They give you a platform where you can create your own online portfolio, gallery, online shop, all while keeping it 100% customizable with their very sleek designs. I just love how easy it is to use. If you don't think it's easy, they give you 24/7 email support, but you're not going to need it because they supply you with easy importing to pull content from Twitter, Foursquare, Instagram. So what are you waiting for? Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/KaseyGolden to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much to Squarespace for supporting my channel, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Stay golden. Bye.